Hey guys, how you going? Hope you're all doing very well. This evening I'm going to be doing another movie review. This movie is an art house film from India, Bengali language English subs, released in the year 2010, directed by Kaushik Mukherjee, and this film is called Gandu. So Gandu is set in a very poor neighbourhood in India. You have a young man nicknamed Gandu. He has aspirations of being a rapper, but he's stuck in his very frustrating situation. He lives with his mother, who lives with her lover. The lover doesn't come along very often. The only time he visits the house is when he wants to have sex with the mother. So while they're having sex, Gandu creeps into the room and he steals money from his mother's lover's wallet. So he spends the money out on the streets, but it's a very aimless life and he's basically a loser. And so one day his life changes when he meets a rickshaw driver. Now this rickshaw driver is a hard worker, but he understands what Gandu is going through. And so he wants to encourage Gandu to pursue his rap career, but things are really bringing them down, and basically the environment. And so the environment is increasingly frustrating, and whether or not Gandu can achieve his dream of being a rapper is something you're going to have to find out for yourself, because that's as far as I'm going with my synopsis. Now my thoughts on Gandu. Indian cinema is not my speciality. For those of you who know my channel, I don't review many Indian films, and the reason is because whenever I think of Indian cinema, I think of Bollywood. Now, I know that not every Indian film is Bollywood, but that's the majority. Basically, when you think of Indian cinema, you think of Bollywood, and Bollywood is definitely not for me. I'm not really into the musical sort of vibe, so that's the reason why I overlook a lot of them. I know that Bollywood has a place in cinema, so each their own, but for me, it just doesn't really, it's not really up my alley. And so, but every now and then, having said that, there are a few films that do grab my interest, and Gandu was one of them. This is not a recent film, but it's a film that I've recently come across. And the reason why I wanted to check this out is because it is supposed to be very challenging. It's a very provocative film. It's a film that was actually banned in India. And when you get a tagline banned in any country, that immediately provokes my interest. I thought, all right, well, what is this going to produce? Is this going to be a very daring film such as Lars von Trier or Gaspar Noé, from a director I'd never heard about before? And so from a country that I'm not terribly familiar with, I thought, well, why not give this one a shot? So I saw the trailer, I thought it looked very interesting, and I finally watched it yesterday. And after watching it, I will say that it is a very challenging film. It's a very provocative film, but unfortunately, it was more challenging in a negative way. And so I didn't really like this film as much as I wanted to. I could appreciate the fact that it was willing to step over the boundary of decency and get banned, but unfortunately it does fall victim to what a lot of extreme films out there fall victim to, and that's something I'll go into a little bit later. But what I liked about Gandu, well, it was basically anti-Bollywood. That was what a reviewer actually said, a professional reviewer actually said, this is like anti-Bollywood, and I completely agree. This is a musicals type of movie, but it's a musical that is venting its frustration at life. This is the lower class of India. This is not Bollywood. This is not fancy. This is not vibrancy. It's not happiness. It's not energetic. It's really downbeat and depressing, and the music that this movie has is a lot of frustration. It's a lot of punk rock, there's a lot of rap. And so the rap and the punk rock is really emulating what this character is going through. Gandu, which was his nickname, he's never actually named, but Gandu is treated like crap and he's been stood on at every opportunity, and there are no real likable characters in this movie. And so that strong sense of hopelessness is not only intensified through the frustration in the soundtrack, but also the black and white visuals. I thought it gave it a very haunting sort of environment. And that haunting environment, as I said, it looked very bleak. It was a very cruel and a very depressing outlook that Gandu had. And I could sense his frustration. So the interactions he has with these people coming into the film, I thought, well, the situation is just getting worse and worse. And there's aspirations of getting out of this horrible situation. They were still there, and that's what kept driving him through. But unfortunately, as is the case with a lot of people out there, it is very relevant to society in that you want to break free of the horrible situation, the vicious cycle you're stuck in, but basically you can't do that because the environment is not allowing you to escape. And so it's kind of like Gandu is trying to break free, but unfortunately it's a lot easier said than done. So the movie goes for 85 minutes. The runtime wasn't too bad, so it is over before you know it. It's not a long movie. But unfortunately, it's just the way it was made. It's an art house film, and I thought the whole experience was very experimental. So you have that sense of frustration, you have that sense of anti-Bollywood, but it's just not making a point. It's just it's just venting its frustration. It's just making as much loud noise as possible without really achieving anything. And so the movie does have one specific scene that is very notorious, and that is an explicit pornographic scene, a sexual encounter between two characters that I thought was out of place, and I thought it was overly graphic just for the sake of being shocking. And this is unfortunately my issue with a lot of extreme films out there, is that you feel as though you're watching a certain film, and then all of a sudden one scene takes you off guard because of how shocking and explicit it is, but then it goes back to being normal. So I always feel as though this is cattle prod cinema, in that it's shocking you. It's not really building up towards anything, and so it just takes you out off guard because it's just there to shock you. It's just there to gain the notoriety and gain the attention instead of actually creating a really decent film, because underneath all of the art house and all the experimental approaches that Gandu has, it just doesn't have anything else going for it. I never gravitated to Gandu especially. I thought he had aspirations of being that rapper. He had dreams that he wanted to follow, but I kept asking myself, why do I care about Gandu as much as I do about millions of other people out there who have the same issue? And unfortunately, that's not really, it's a question that you can't really answer. And if it does have an answer, it's basically you don't care. It's because there's no character development whatsoever. The story just meanders along. And unfortunately, I lost interest to some degree. I never lost interest completely because of the way that the director was using the camera, the way it was integrating with the music. I thought was interesting, but it was the production that was interesting. It wasn't actually the story. So it's a very boring and very mediocre story that goes at a very tedious pace. And I just felt as though it falls victim to what art house is. It's a pretentious film, and it thinks it's a lot better than it actually is. So the acting was decent. I thought that one scene in particular was very challenging, but it was unfortunately more challenging to actually get through the whole experience. So I see a lot of people turning this off before it actually gets to that notorious scene, but it's unfortunate. If you are a fan of extreme cinema, it's that one scene that you're going to remember because of how shocking and how graphic it is. And it's also an indication of how we look at sexuality, is that you're seeing a graphic sex scene is a lot more offensive than seeing someone's head get bashed in, which is very messed up, and that's a thought-provoking quality that the movie produces. But it's a thought-provoking quality that's not confined to this specific film. Is confined to a whole lot of other extreme films, and so the movie just doesn't have too much going for it. Unfortunately, I just felt as though it was an experimental music video that goes on way too long for its own good, and it come across as a really mediocre experience. So I don't share the love for Gandu. I appreciate the fact that it was breaking those boundaries and going into taboo subjects as far as film is concerned, but it just doesn't have enough content to make it memorable. So overall for Gandu, going to give this one 1.5 stars. Disappointing, but if you are a fan of experimental film, go out there and see it. All right, guys, that's it for my review. Hope you enjoyed it. Till next time, keep watching movies, and I'll see you later.